Just a quick disclosure to share in conjunction with this podcast. Each of us are speaking to our personal experiences and do not consider ourselves experts and cannot offer medical, therapy, financial, or legal advice. We represent a wide range of experience on the autism spectrum and will always honor each perspective that is brought to our discussions. Our experiences, opinions, and perspectives are all unique and different and will be celebrated. Thank you so much for listening and connecting with us. Thank you. Hello, this is Navigating Adult Autism, and we are 7 moms with a bunch of perspectives, opinions, and experience. And we are all here tonight. I'm Mary, and we have Heather and Tara, Kara, Elizabeth, Cynthia, and Dawn. I was just going to say Cynthia is on the line. She's not present with us, but she is on the line. And we're here tonight to talk about sensory issues. But first of all, we do have, our new segment that's around called Navigating News. We have a little update, and the update is that Kara went to New York and saw the Broadway play How to Dance in Ohio. It's a new musical based on a true story, and most of the cast, Kara, or all of the cast, has autism.
Yeah, a majority of the cast have that are on the spectrum. Yeah.
And I see here there's 3 facts about the show. The autistic characters and understudies are cast authentically, meaning if they are playing an autistic character, they identify as autistic as well. The second fact is they are constantly learning about ways to make their theater experience more accessible. So explore the other side to read about our current in-theater offerings. Well, that's not applicable tonight on this podcast, but and then you can go to ohio.moretotalkabout.com to continue the conversation about this play. So that's exciting.
It was fun. It was fun. Yeah, we went last Thursday, and come to find out, the night that we went was teacher night. So there were lots of schools and special ed teachers there.
Oh, that's good.
And it was a packed house, sold out. Sold out. Yeah, and it was. A couple of times I cried because it hit home. They were teenagers in high school. Transitioning into adulthood. Yeah, and
it was moving.
It was very moving, and they were very talented. It was a musical, and they were, so there was a lot of singing. They were very talented, and it was kind of funny story. We will actually have pictures of our little cup in front of the front sign, the flashing sign of the musical. We'll put that on Facebook. But when we were leaving, my husband was there with me, and we had gone to see another Broadway show. We had seen Lion King. And we were walking down the street, walking back to our hotel. And my husband goes, well, I'm feeling a lot better. I'm feeling good leaving this Broadway show even more than whenever we left Lion King. And I'm like, really? And he said, yeah. He goes, Kara, I got to admit, I cried through the whole thing. I thought I saw you tear it up.
Well, it's called How to Dance in Ohio.
And that's there's a documentary by the same name, right?
Oh, that I don't know.
I'm not sure. I know that the Broadway show is going till February 11th, which I think is Monday or Sunday of this next Sunday. But hopefully maybe they'll extend it or it'll go off Broadway.
Yeah. Just travel. Yeah. I need to travel here.
Yeah. Then we need road trip girls.
Yeah, then we need a girls trip.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay, so that's all in Navigating News for today. Now we go to our topic, which is sensory issues. And I'm just going to do a little brief description for those listeners that this is new information. But many people with autism have difficulty processing everyday sensory information. They can be either hypersensitive, which is overreactive, or hyposensitive, which is underreactive to sensory input, or experience fragmented or distorted perceptions. A person's response to sensory experiences may fluctuate even from one day to the next, which I think we've all seen with our children and adults. People with autism might have sensitivities to sights, sounds, increased movements such as jumping, spinning, crashing into things. There's many things. So we're just going to shed light on what we've all been through. And of course, like normal in our podcast, what worked, what didn't. If they still have sensory issues, what has changed. with all of our children in sensory issues.
So, Mary, I'm glad this is Elizabeth. I'm glad you mentioned that fluctuation because I know I've taught many times and put that sensory piece in. And every time there's an adult or young adult with autism in the audience, they're raising their hand saying, it's not one or the other. It can fluctuate from sense to sense, day to day, type of auditory. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that in right up front because I've been corrected many times to make sure, so that we don't think we figure somebody out and know, well, they're always sensitive to noise or they're always drawn towards light. It does vary.
It does vary. I think even with my own son, I think, oh, wow, that didn't bother him. But tomorrow it may bother him, so even loud sounds. So I would say one sensory issue that's pretty typical for all kids with autism or adult. I know we say kids, it is an adult podcast. They're still our kids. So we are talking still adults, but or loud noises, obviously. I mean, is that with all you guys too? I mean, my son is still bothered by noises and we've touched on it before, but anyone want to talk about that? Or headphones? I think I talked about my son putting earplugs in. Yes. Even when he sleeps at night, or even with cutting the grass in his apartment building, he'll put them on. And then sometimes he's okay with loud noises.
And he's on the third floor up top.
He's on the third floor. It's usually when he comes down. Yeah, he puts them in, or if I'm picking him up, he'll have to put them in coming down. And he got on my case that one time. But hello, they're cutting grass. That's why I need my earplugs. But
so this is Heather. I got some headphones.
Yes,
Zachary. He didn't wear headphones until about 5th grade, but it does change. And I think that's what makes it difficult to think, okay, I got this figured out. Because, from probably 5th grade till, 2 years ago, he would wear them when he went to school and things, but he wouldn't wear them inside the house. Now he wears them 24/7.
Really?
Why
do you think that is?
Well, I don't
From
know.
Your own perspective.
I'm wondering if, because there's not a bunch of noise in our house, although we do have the alarm. We turn it off. If I'm right there with him, I will turn it off. But usually it's on, and that's the door chime. So if Michael would go out the front door, I do sometimes see him kind of run past because he doesn't want to hear. It'll say front door open, and it's loud because that's the whole point of having it. But I think now it seems like he likes almost the pressure of it on his head.
Oh,
that's what I think. Because he actually,
it's like comforting.
Yeah, it has like he kind of has an indentation. When we get his haircut,
oh no,
we're like there's a little bit of a
like a cowlick kind of
like an indentation on the side of his head.
Oh no, because like a head indentation.
Yeah, because like if you think about it, when he was in 5th grade, he wore the same headphones. They're the same brand. I mean, they're for an adult. They're not kids' headphones. But I mean, his head is, I'm sure, gotten bigger. Like, don't we all grow?
Right.
Yeah. I guess. Yeah. I'm not a head expert, but I feel like your head is a different size from 5th grade to 22. I don't know. But yeah, headphones. But the noise for him, it's odd what noises bother him. People noises bother him.
Yeah.
Yes.
But if you take him to I don't know, where there's tractors and whatever.
Monster truck rally.
Yeah, I don't think that would really bother him. So I'm not sure if it's the tone or just like you said, Elizabeth, it's just depending on the day. But people are why we can't go places, not generally.
You mentioned babies
general
at church.
noises.
I think it's also, at least for Zion, if it's one voice above all others, because he can handle Silver Dollar City or something like that, where it's all sort of like or like beach noises, where all the noises are all pushed together. Yeah, that doesn't bother him. But if it's one voice above others, especially if it's a baby, that's what really bothers him. But Zion has said something to me in the past, and he's sitting right here, so he can nod to me if this is not correct. But he has told me that he has gotten used to the headphones, and now he is more sensitive when he takes them off. Mm-hmm. And so he relies on them a lot more. And he even says, not if I'm saying this wrong, that you rely on them because you've gotten used to them. And it's sort of almost like you are sort of mad that you got used to them a little bit. Yeah. It's like he
Give it
wishes
a
that,
thumbs up.
yeah, he wishes that he didn't wear them as much, but now he relies on them so much.
And I think Temple Grandin talked about that.
Yeah,
Is that what you're
yeah,
going to say?
exactly. Yep.
Elizabeth, go ahead.
Yeah. That's what Temple Grandin in the last couple of years had heard her say a couple of times, giving that warning, that
Yeah.
sometimes, when we use them a lot, we become reliant on them. And sometimes if it's needed, that reliance
definitely reliant.
is,
We're
Yeah.
addicted to the headphones. Yeah.
We are too.
but if it helps them
How
to
we go,
function,
Yeah.
that's so, it's,
Yeah.
but that's just something that might happen. So
Yeah.
just to be aware of that and make
it's
those
the-
choices.
yeah, if it's the only way that he can go out to dinner with us, then we're gonna
Right.
take those headphones.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And we want him to be there. So,
Right.
anyways,
And I was talking to Nicole today, so my oldest, and I was told her we're going to be talking about sensory, and she said she still has a lot of sensory issues. Sound, has a lot of them. She's gone from her job where she is a lead now. So before she could wear earplugs, and she takes photos at dance, these big dance competitions all over the United States. Well, now she's a lead, and she's wearing the headphones so she can hear communication on what's going on, who needs what. And she's having a hard time.
Yeah.
She says, I just did not realize. And she said it really made her think, because what she's noticed is over the years that when she's overstimulated, her sensory issues go through the roof. If she's regulated and things are okay, but when she gets overstimulated, that's when that sensory impact is exaggerated, and she struggles. She was using the word misophonia. She said that's a reaction to kind of an intense reaction to sounds that are irritating you. And she said, I just am really, really struggling with that. She said, but she said that's just that's what she's noticed all these years. She says, when I'm just really whether it's overly excited or stressed, but any overstimulation, her sensory issues increase.
yeah.
I was at the Autism Speaks website today, I guess just reading about sensory things. And they explained part of the sensory is, think of yourself as a battery, and there are things that deplete your battery. And then you need to come up with things to charge your batteries. And, the sensory diets and things along that line. And I think that ties in. And I hadn't thought of that in that way. My son wears headphones to church when he goes. And my brother Max.
This is the message.
Yeah. Probably so. And then because he is searching for a job right now, so they want to know what his sensory issues are as it applies to a job. And so he disclosed that when he was working at SWI, he would put in earplugs because he said it's a lot easier.
A little more appropriate
Or So, we have to think about
depending on
all of
where
these
you are. Yeah.
sensory issues on employment. And we've already talked about hygiene, how sensory issues are a major component of some of the hygiene issues that we face.
That's right. And at SWI, let me tell you, that buzzer goes off. It scared the crud out of me. And I that was a concern of mine, because I said, wow, this is so loud. It was loud for me. And they said, well, they do get used to it, or they have headphones or earplugs. So it's like when it's time to break. But those are things you have to get used to at a job. So yeah, you're right.
And I think, speaking of loudness, when my son speaks, he's loud.
Yeah.
And having a really hard time getting him to recognize that he is loud and to bring it down. And I think some of it just normal when you butt into a conversation, you're loud so you can cut in to the conversation a little bit. But
that's a good point. I mean, I don't know if you guys, my son does not understand
The fluctuation.
The whisper, talk softer.
I've even asked Kelsey, can you whisper? She couldn't physically whisper.
For a long
She could
time.
not. And it was like, use your breath. And she, for a long, she goes, I can't, Mom.
Right.
I can't.
Agreed. It's
Yeah.
great. Teach him to
And
whisper.
in public, when things are loud, her voice will get loud. I guess to compensate for it. I don't know what many times, like, use your quiet voice. And then she gets, what do you mean, Mom? And it's really loud.
Right.
It's difficult for her.
Right. We just had that at a restaurant last week. my son just at dinner, and we were like, we were at Haruno, so you're kind of close together. Like, you need to lower your, yeah, it was a lot of repetitive, and finally he whispered. And I think that was like the first time I heard him whisper in years. I was like, oh my gosh, he can whisper. Like, I couldn't believe it. It was a little eye-opening, but I do feel like that's kind of common in our world.
I've heard many people say that their kids their children with autism, adults or not, that they hate sound, right? They've got the sensory to noise, but they're the loudest people that
That's a good
know.
point.
I mean, Zachary is not, if he's quiet, I'm wondering what's happening. Because he's usually making
sick.
noise, right? Yes, right. Like if he's not pacing or stomping or hitting something or banging a movie on the table that's it, yes.
That's sensory input.
And he doesn't understand. I'll say quiet feet. I think I've said quiet feet maybe 1 million times as he stomps. It's just not something. I just don't know if that's a
So you do it
concept
for
he
you,
understands.
not him?
Yeah, I
He
mean,
didn't, yeah.
yeah, he looks at me like I know he sees that I'm talking to him, but the feet never get quieter. It's just so I don't know. I agree that maybe the decibel range part is just maybe not something.
Well, and in
That's
turn,
to
you've talked
understand.
about the foot problem that he has
Yeah.
now.
Yeah,
Because of that
Yeah.
sensory input that he needs to stomp. So
Yeah,
now it
he's-
can cause problems
he's
as an
a little
adult.
ball of sensory issues. I feel like. I mean, if you think about all the stuff that we've all dealt with our kids, the noise is just one thing that I think most people think of first.
Right.
Because any typical person that's not dealing with it, they think, oh, that's whatever. But it's food, it's clothing, it's walking, it's
It's
all that
touch.
stuff.
Yeah, Nicole that told me too, as I was talking to her, she said she remembers that, when she would shake somebody's hand or something, she could feel that kind of, she called it an echo of their hand afterwards. And she would have to kind of shake it off, kind of almost do a flap and just shake off that negative energy because she could just, and she called it just like that echo of being touched. And if one side was touched, she had to make it match on the other side. And just because there was just that sensation that was so strong.
Wow.
That's
Elizabeth, did
interesting.
she say anything how she's handling that, working with her sensory overload, how she's handles that?
As she's grown and she's really at the point where she's starting to understand a little bit more on how it much impacts her. She even said over the last few days, she said, I didn't realize, how much my diagnosis impacts me. Now that I'm working like this, I'm working at a high competitive level and I'm seeing how much it's impacting me and, the noise and the lights and needing that time away to, and she's learning how to, speak up and ask for those accommodations. And then she says, well, I feel like I need to be accommodated for some things. And I said, but you got to ask. I said, they're not going to figure it out.
Right.
And I know it's hard to work. It's hard for anybody to work 16-hour days. And it's really figuring out how do I ask for those. And I don't know if Eric, because he's done competitive employment too, if he has struggled. I mean, he got a lot of smells in the zoo, so.
Right. And at the
And
vet's
that musty
office.
bookstore.
And this is Cynthia. When he was, and Eric, our son, has Asperger's. When he was very young, it started like at 2. I didn't know anything was going on with him, but he used to have to do wrestling with his daddy. And this wrestling would be deep pressure, and it would be total body slamming. And I would be like a wreck because I kept saying, you guys, by the time you get done, somebody's going to be crying, someone's going to be hurt because they got rough with each other. But Eric just needed that deep pressure, and he wouldn't stop. Once they started, he would not stop. And it would be this crying fit to get him to stop it because he just felt like he needed it more and more and more. And then once he did go to school and everything, he was affected all the way across the board. And he'd come home every day and go outside on the hill, and he would pace back and forth for it could be hours. I mean, he paced, there was no grass on the ground there where he paced. He had a path that he would go on. And he has, and I know that, and now when he does get overstimulated, he does need to, like, after going to that thing on Saturday, he just needed to rest because it was a lot going on, and he just probably needed to go back and just be alone and rest and have some downtime.
Yeah.
That's how he kind of processed it all.
How's he handling baby cries?
I think he's doing okay with it. It's amazing, though. I think he hasn't really. I think he's okay with it. But I don't hear her cry very much, and so he says she only cries when she's hungry or needs a diaper change. So maybe he tries to prevent her from not crying, so he makes sure she's fed a lot.
Preemptive striking.
Or there's that fluctuation too, that maybe that doesn't bother him, as much. But
Exactly.
And I think sometimes with autism, just for our listeners, when we talk about sensory or self-stimulatory behavior, a lot of the classic autism back in the day was the person in the corner, flapping their hands and everything. It's kind of more than that. And Cynthia, when you were talking about, they do stim. There is some very many facets of stimming, but that's what my son would do too. He'd come home from school or from work, and the trampoline saved our life. I think we went through 3.
Oh, yeah.
And he would come home and I'd say, you need to go jump, and he would jump on that trampoline or pace on the trampoline,
right.
Just kind of bounce around in a circle. And they used to call it echolalia or echo or talk to himself. I think we used a term before. I forgot what it was.
Yeah. And see, Eric had a trampoline too. And that's when he was out there by the trampoline, either on the ground or on the trampoline, like for hours.
Right. And if he was crabby or tired or something was going on, I would, my husband and I would just point to the door and say, go jump. You need to go jump.
Exactly.
Because that really did calm him down. That just really helped him, maybe like Zachary stomping. I don't know if that just...
Well, that's what we were talking about, because he had a trampoline forever. But he's 20. He's almost 23.
We need to get rid of it, yeah.
And we broke the springs twice. And
Correct.
We're just like... we're in our 20s. How long do we keep the big trampoline?
That's exactly what we did.
But that is what the OT said. That maybe this is because he doesn't have... Because before he even had a big trampoline, that kid would just bounce on one of those big bouncy medicine balls. Because he had great balance. Yes.
I remember.
He has wonderful balance. He would spend a lot of time on those things. Yeah, just bouncing and bouncing and bouncing.
I still have one in the closet downstairs.
Well, I had to pop the last one we had because he was going to hit his head on the ceiling because he'd gotten so big. When we moved to our current house, Michael's like, he can't jump on that anymore. I'm just like, okay. But I think what's interesting already for me is that because Zachary can't tell me anything, right? So we're just going off what an OT or what somebody thinks they know about it. But, no one knows unless they've done it. So like hearing what Nicole's saying and Eric and different ones, it definitely, I think it increases my, motivation to kind of have him lead us. I'm not sure that, because for many years when he was in school, I don't know if you guys experienced this, but it was more about do everything to keep that stimming down. We don't want any stimming.
Correct.
No, we don't do that, right? Yes. So, and I just feel like now that maybe that might have been the wrong approach.
I remember requesting the small trampoline or something, or let him, no. We just sit and work on handwriting.
Because I think there was this thing, like, we got to get him into that box.
Correct.
That box that every, typical kid is going to act like. And I just think the older that he's gotten, I feel like we owe him. Like, he knows his body way better than I do. I don't know how he feels. Like Nicole saying those things, that I don't know, I feel like we have to take their lead a little bit on, that's something I've learned in the sensory world.
A lot of observation.
And food, too.
Yes.
I'm not going to shove something down my kid's throat that makes him just choke or heave. Like, what?
I've given up on that.
Why? and food has been, huge for us. And I just figure I don't know. I'm not in his body. You know what I mean?
Well, I can't hardly stand the texture of oatmeal. And if you tried to force that down me, I'd have a problem. So say from going from 1 or 2, cooked spinach. I loved that freeze-dried stuff we had that one time.
Yeah,
that was wow. I keep thinking about that.
Spinach.
Flash fried. Oh, I dreamt about that. But if you try to feed me
I'll bring it one night.
Boiled spinach and oatmeal, I would fight it. I would fight it. And if that was my day.
Brussels sprouts.
Okay, yeah. just think of those 2 things times, maybe one of our kids has that with 200 things. Is that less important? Should we respect that less?
Mm-hmm. But then you've got the kids that have the sensory oral issue and the food we're talking about. They may only eat 4 foods, and those 4 foods aren't very nutritious. So then parents worry, are they getting enough nutrition?
Yes.
It's a growing child. Should I supplement with these sport shakes? Well, then they won't do the sport shakes.
Right.
And so they're very limited on what foods. So there's a lot of guilt with parents.
I feel like because we
Nutrition.
have adult children with autism, I feel like, they're sort of plateaued with their growing and stuff like that. I just feel like we have so much else to fight a little bit. I just
New
feel
fights.
like, they're
Different fights.
Yeah, they're different fights, definitely. So
Like
I
we
have
mentioned before,
yeah.
if I know that I love to eat sugar and I should not eat sugar, right? I'm just thinking I'm a grown adult and I make all sorts of poor nutritional choices
Absolutely.
when I eat. So I don't know that I can hold Zachary
Yeah.
to a different
Yeah.
standard. You know what I mean?
We do. I mean, with our Zion is capable of cooking something different. So I've said this in the past. If he doesn't like what I cook, has to make his own meal.
That's good.
So
That's good.
so it may not be nutritious, and he usually will usually will taste it, and then he just has a horrible look on his face. And don't ever tell him that it's turkey versus beef or something like that, because he knows that.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
You cannot lie.
Yeah.
Like you
No, you
can't
can't.
fib, whatever you want to call it.
No,
You can't do that.
no. My good friend, who's a special ed teacher, she tried to fool my son with the Hydrox cookies instead of the Oreos.
No.
Oh no, that was a huge
Yeah.
fit, and she still brings that up to this day. That one time I tried to.
And they will remind you
Yes,
forever.
oh,
Do you
forever.
remember, Mom, when you tried to tell me that this was turkey and this, or you tried to tell me it was beef and it was
they
actually
know.
turkey or venison? And oh my gosh, now he won't trust me. So
I think it's been 20 years. Nicole's finally eaten a chocolate chip cookie because about 8 or 9, 10 years old, I used dark chocolate instead of milk chocolate. And it ruined chocolate chip cookies for her.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're so excited. I think it's just been within the last year. She's like, I ate a chocolate chip cookie and it was really good. But she just couldn't eat it after that. But,
Zion has a long memory.
yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So does
They
my
never
son.
forget. Yeah.
But I really did like Kara's point, though. We never want to put any pressure on, families. And like we say in our intro, we value perspectives, because when you have a little one and
And you're
eating-
living it.
Yeah.
Mhm. Day to day.
Yeah, it makes it a big difference. So, the choices you're going to make when your child is young and trying to, get them to, desensitize to food
Mhm.
is much different than what we're talking about
Yeah.
right now.
Well, and on
think so,
that
too.
note, that's some of the best advice I ever received. I may have talked about this before. Could have been from Ginger. I'm not sure. When I had to introduce my son to new foods because of the sensory issues, and it was the 4 foods, and the only good thing he ate probably was broccoli, so that's good. But that
Kelsey,
was one of
too. That
one
was
of the
one of
4
her
things.
favorites.
It was broccoli.
Chase,
Yes,
too.
still is.
Wow. Really? Chase?
That was Chase too.
Loves broccoli.
So does
And
Kelsey.
so does JR.
Oh,
Oh wow.
wow.
So I made
Actually,
it.
Eric does too.
It was like
Eric loves broccoli too?
Oh
Yes,
wow.
he
We're in the
does.
majority.
He still eats it. But it was like called New Food Thursday. Did I talk about this already? Sorry.
Oh.
So he was 8, 9, and I know I got it from, it wasn't my idea. I got it from somewhere. Because back then when you have a youngster, you're reading everything and going to conferences, but I had to introduce New Food Thursday. So, because he's a visual, or all of our kids are, they're visual, they like to know what's coming up. He knew that on Thursdays he had to try a new food. And it was something at the table. It was his choice. He got to choose. Or I would say, try the salad or the mashed potatoes. And the first time we did it at dinner, it was a major fit. He, threw himself on the floor. My husband and I are just acting like nothing's going on. We're ignoring the behavior.
Mhm.
And my husband's looking at me like with, I can't believe we're doing this. But I said, just smile. How are you? That lasted 20 minutes on the floor until he finally got up in the chair and said, fine, I'll do it. I was like, oh my, and I'm like, this is working. And he decided to try the salad, which I thought for sure he'd try mashed potato. So yeah, he took a bite of salad with ranch dressing, and that was it. And I said, good job. You did it. I high-fived him, praised him for it. The next week, there was another 2 foods. For some reason, I had shrimp cocktail. It must have been a good day for me. I
Sounds
don't know
yummy.
what I was. I had steak on the grill, and I bought some shrimp cocktail. I don't know. And he tried that shrimp cocktail. I couldn't. I
Wow.
thought that was the last thing he was going to try. He loves shrimp to this day.
That's great.
Now, I will say the fit started again. Only lasted 10 minutes this time. We ignored the behavior. Told my husband, right, we're going to ignore the behavior. Just He got up in the chair, stomped his fist on the table, and fine, I'll try it again. And that was the only time I had a problem. And so the next week it came, he did it on his own, and then we've never had a problem since.
Yeah.
And I do think that really helped desensitize him because he was more willing to try. But he, limited. Good. It was a really good technique. And I say that a lot because I think with parents that are struggling, it worked,
Yeah.
and you have to, they're going to pitch a fit. They're not going to be happy about it. Do I normally ignore a lot of behavior? Depends what it is. That's our next topic. But that I just was going off ginger, someone telling me, and it worked. So he's still picky though. He still doesn't like certain smells of food, cooking.
Right.
But listen, pick your battles.
Yep.
He eats pretty good. I will say that he did it in school about the food pyramid because he's visual. For a long time, he had to follow that food pyramid. And to this day, he
God
still
bless the food pyramid.
Yeah. Yes. And he still eats raw vegetables every day, like celery or carrots, raw carrots.
That is amazing.
I mean, so I kind of overlook he has a sweet
Yeah.
tooth like you, Heather. He's,
Yeah.
he loves his, he bakes red velvet cakes and likes to
Nice.
cook things for himself,
Nice.
Wow.
but
I
he
love
needs
that.
the one time I said, you don't need all those carrots. And I thought that was dumb to say, but he said, Mom, yes, I do. I have to have, 4 servings of vegetables every day. I said, okay, that's good. That's a good choice.
Yeah.
So, but I just gave that tip about the New Food Thursday, or pick any day you want for maybe younger parents that are listening that just introduce maybe.
We
And
used
since
to-
it was on his schedule, he knew it was
Yes.
coming up, so he could prepare for it mentally and visually to know, and that's big in our world. So just throwing that out there.
No, and it's a great strategy
That's a good
for other
idea.
issues too. And while food's a big one, if I could jump back to
Sure.
the stimming, my son currently has a stim that is, in addition to the pacing that we've heard about, he will, while he's scripting a little bit, he will pull back his hand and it looks like he's going to punch the air. And it looks, to the uninitiated eye,
like a
it
punch is
raises eyebrows. Is this a threatening gesture or what exactly is this? And I think I had even somebody once describe it as he looks like he's demon possessed. And as I've already disclosed, that's a wonderful comment to make to a Pentecostal pastor's kid.
Oh, that's awful.
But I asked him, I said, okay, JR, are you okay? I'm okay. What is it? Can you tell me what it is? It's nothing. Can you control it? And that's probably something you don't want to do in public. When you're here at the house behind closed doors, if you have to do it, just don't punch me or anybody in the family.
People will
And
get the wrong
he never
impression.
has, the wrong impressions. And so, stimming is, if that's the way that he needs to recharge his batteries, then so be it. I need to hopefully give him some guidance. You don't want to do that on the job, especially, in the first 2 weeks or whatever.
Right.
But he really wasn't hitting anybody though.
No, he wasn't. But
Yeah.
it does.
It looks like he might.
it
though.
looks like he might.
Okay.
But think of our kids from, when they were diagnosed, the sensory issues that they had then and then where they are now.
Oh yeah.
Right.
All the therapies and all the services that we've had to help them try to adapt. I know with Kelsey, going through therapies, the therapist, the OT kept saying, okay, she's sucking her finger. She needs that oral sensation. She sucked her fingers till she was almost in high school. We even, tried bribing her with a 4-wheeler to get her to stop sucking her fingers. I think I mentioned this previously. It didn't work, but look where they've all come,
Oh my
and
gosh,
things, yes, they may still have sensory issues, but they may be more age appropriate or they've adapted, or maybe they can kind of fight it until, later on that night when they get home and then they desensitize and do what needs to be done to help them
Or they find
survive.
just appropriate measures, like
Yeah.
like Zion's therapy. His service dog is you give her the hugs command, and she jumps up on his lap and gives him the pressure that he needs. I think when he was younger, he would actually have behavior. So I would hold him in a sort of like a restraint hug, because there were so many times, like some of the behavior would come out of nowhere. And he knew that I was going to, he can't just hit people and stuff like that. So we went to a restraint class and learned how to do that safely. And I would hold him on my lap and restrain him. And I feel like a lot of times he was doing that behavior, so he would have that deep pressure. So he would get in that big, that hug squeeze. And now he can ask for a hug.
Right.
He can ask his dog to get on his lap or whatever.
But can you imagine how frustrating?
Right.
We don't have autism.
Yeah.
We don't know what they're feeling.
He's
As
like,
parents,
yeah.
we're trying to
like,
do the
I
best
need
we
this.
can. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And, just trying to learn what they need.
Whereas Temple Grandin made that pressure machine in
Right.
her movie that
the
was with
box.
Claire Danes. Yeah. That she made it in her dorm or something.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was
The
instead of-
hug machine,
yeah.
I think is what it was
Right,
called.
right. Instead of, teaching them to use their words, like he can ask for it now. So
Yeah.
that's important. And I thought of Nicole too, like when she's at work, it's so appropriate to say, oh, I need a minute, and let her
Yeah.
walk out, just giving them that it's okay. Because I know my son right now, we really don't know what goes on at church or a restaurant or wherever we're at. We can just tell by a look on his face, he just kind of starts blinking or acts uncomfortable. And then we'll say, we just can cue him now. Like, do you need a break or do you need, and he'll go, and we'll just go, okay, go get fresh air. I mean, we could be anywhere, he'll walk out. And I think when you guys were all talking, that's just so normal for us. I don't even think
Yeah.
that it's sensory, but it is.
Right.
So then he'll come back, I'm fine. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
but he needs some type of break.
But look how
Yeah.
long it took. Maybe years ago, he may have
He'll be
had a
32.
meltdown.
Yes.
And then now.
True. True.
Exactly.
So the sensory issues never really stop.
No, my girls got me a weighted blanket for Christmas, and we watched a movie the other night, and I got under that, and then afterwards I got out, and I was like, I had had a massage. I felt like I'd had a massage, and I was like,
Really?
oh,
I need to
These
find that
things
weighted.
are-
I need to find Zion's weighted blanket
yeah. I was really surprised at how
for
just
myself, not
relaxed.
for Zion.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, this feels like I just had a massage.
Yeah.
Just body was just relaxed, and yeah, it was really interesting. So
In high school, Zachary wore a weighted vest to school every day.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of weighted vests in schools.
So he had the headphones and the weighted vest. And he looked like he was going into battle. And he was.
Right.
He was going to high school.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Right.
but he doesn't seem to need that anymore. But definitely in the school setting he did. But I will say from the perspective of him not being able to tell me and us
Right.
not having a rational discussion about what can you do or can't you, that is, let's see, that's something that irritates me probably, for not that he's doing it, but I'm saying in public plus stimming is very irritating. And it is one of the reasons that I really started a Facebook page for him, because I feel like that's the most off-putting to the community. They don't understand.
Right.
They freak out a little bit. They find it awkward. They either say something rude and stare, or they avoid your stare altogether.
Yeah.
But I mean, and Zachary's not. So I guess the line for me would be, is it hurting him or someone else? Well, then I'm going to intervene. But if he's flapping his hands or he's talking about VeggieTales, I can't stop him from doing that.
Right.
So we're just going to have to go do it. So I would say anyone listening that's not in, the disability world, just realize that it's, as we're talking here, this is about, giving their body what they need to equalize, I guess. Maybe that's how we should say it. So it's not a bad thing. And certainly if a parent, I think any parent that would think that, something violent or something would be happening, we would certainly do whatever we needed to prevent that, or we wouldn't go to the mall that day. Because every day is different. But it is an all-encompassing thing. And I do also think sometimes that people, even family members, that they don't get to go to the OT sessions and they don't get to understand proprioceptive and
Yes.
all these things.
The terminology.
Right.
I mean, it's kind
Yes.
of like these magical words. Like, what are you even talking about? Like, can't feel their body in space.
Right.
Like,
Is that irritating though? I mean, it's
No.
irritating to me
It is
that when
irritating.
family members, they'll question you about things, but they don't take the attempt to go and learn.
Right.
Yes.
True.
No, I think that is hard because
Mhm.
I just think the general public sometimes think, is this really a thing?
Right.
Like, is this really a thing? Because it seems
Right.
kind of,
Or should they correct him and make him stop that? Or, are they working
Right.
on that? Yeah.
right. So,
Or
I
were they
don't know.
allowing him to do that?
In school, like teachers would tell us they would say quiet mouth to Zachary.
Mhm.
And
Did that work?
No,
Yeah.
it doesn't work. And I'll be honest, I just don't really like that. The other thing that he used to get, they'd brush him, which is fine.
Oh, yeah.
But then
did that.
brushing.
they
Yes.
would roll him. What was it called? Roll him.
Oh, like in a
Cocooning,
deep
burrito.
Oh,
Yes, like a burrito.
Yeah, we
Yes.
did that.
In junior high.
Zion asked for
in
that
junior
though.
high. Oh,
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think
Exactly, yeah.
they found that we never did that at home. But I know at school and junior high they did that a little bit, and that seemed to comfort him for a period of time. They felt like his
Yeah.
focus was better or whatever. But just understanding all that stuff, because it's kind of foreign to most people that aren't in our world, and that it's nothing irregular. It's normal for somebody on the autism spectrum to have all of these sensory needs. So
Right.
Yeah.
And
So
behaviors.
Nathan, so it's Elizabeth Nathan, he at 21, he hums constantly. I was on the phone with somebody and they were like, "Is that a cow?" I was like, "No, that's my son." But we also know if we don't hear him humming, we're worried because
Right.
he's happy when he's humming. That's how we know he's
sweet.
happy. If he's not been humming for a while, we're like, something's wrong. So,
Yeah.
So if JR was working with Nathan at the workshop
uh-huh.
and the humming bothered him, then he would say, "Stop that." Nathan probably couldn't, so
No.
he'd continue it. "Stop that."
Nathan
And
probably
then
start
so-
laughing.
Oh.
So then, I mean, because my son's been in situations like that where somebody else with autism
Yes. Good
is
point.
getting on
That's a good
his
point.
last nerve.
That's a good point.
Yep.
And
Yep.
Uh-huh.
They should
you
both be
just leave,
accommodated.
Dawn. Yeah.
Yeah.
and
They
well,
should be moved away from each other.
Well, you're right.
They should
Yeah.
both be
And-
accommodated.
Oh,
We did Miracle
That's an
League. We
excellent
tried Miracle League this
Uh-huh.
year, and that's exactly. I couldn't get Zachary to stay a whole 10 minutes.
Right.
Mm.
If he could go and just do it, and it was quiet, he would have done it, and I think he would have complied and maybe had a little fun.
can you explain Miracle League really quick?
Miracle League is somebody might help me more that's been in it, maybe more involved. But this was our first summer we tried. It's just adaptive baseball, basically.
Oh, okay.
And you get to hit the ball and run the bases, right? Cynthia's, I don't know if Eric
Yeah.
did that ever, but
Nathan chased
that.
okay.
Yeah.
So we were excited
cool
about that. We were excited about another kind of, I don't know, just something else to do and to try.
Mhm.
But no, it wasn't
didn't
for
work.
us.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was too many. And it's fine. It's fine.
Oh
It
yeah,
just-
my boys did it for years and years, and then Nathan got to the point where he didn't want to do it, so we didn't make him. He watched Chase, and then Chase got to the point where he was doing other things, but he wanted to keep doing it because
Yeah.
he had friends there. It was really fun. Chase was I think he might still be on their website. That first time he was one of the first ones up, and they hit the ball, and it's one base at a time. They have a buddy, but nobody told Chase that, so he made a home run that first. And the crowd was going wild.
Oh,
so
that's
it was,
Well,
fun.
we just went, picked up a shirt and his hat, and said, "Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We're probably not going to be back."
That has actually happened so many times with,
Oh, for
with
sure.
Zion
Oh,
is that we go try something with other people on the spectrum and Zion can't handle the other kids or
The
adults on the
environment, the
spectrum
sounds, everything.
stimming.
Yeah.
He has a very hard time with either anybody hand flapping or anything. It's very interesting. I feel so bad because I'm like, I don't know. It's like you just have to advocate for your own. I mean, not advocate, but accommodate your own son, because
Right.
even though you have a heart for everybody else there and
Right.
you want him to be there and
Yes.
contribute, but
Exactly
it's just
right.
like
That's
It's
like
very
those
hard.
sensory movies that they have, which is wonderful. It's so wonderful that they have the sensory movies.
yeah.
People say, "Hey, there's not a sensory movie."
Oh, the movie theater
Yeah.
holds
Movie
a sensory
theater
all the
offers
time.
sensory.
Yeah.
I'm like, and it's sweet. Thank you for for
We tried
mentioning it
those.
to us. But no, that would be like walking into the depths of like the worst situation we could, like with, you know what I mean? Just be like little kids, and whether they have autism or
Right.
not. It's like if the lights are up, he doesn't care that the lights are up.
Mhm.
It's the
Yeah.
people, and it's all the people are there.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Anyway,
Well,
you
and
try?
I was, go ahead. Were you going to say something, Dawn, or no?
I-
No, I was just going to say real quick about the scripting you guys talk about. It used to be called echolalia.
So
Elizabeth, wasn't it the term? What
the
was
diff-
Is it changed?
the difference to me in echolalia is
When
if
you repeat something
if I'm
back.
asking Zachary a question, he repeats the last
Correct.
two words back to me right then, just that's his
Okay.
back and forth conversation.
Okay.
Scripting, he's not talking to anybody, he's not responding to anybody, and he's always literally scripting something from a commercial, a song, a movie. It's dialogue.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
That is, my
Right.
son still does that
Yes.
to this day. I mean, he
Yeah.
always has done it. But I will say, and I'm just saying this to the listeners too, that it is okay. I mean, he's almost 32, but he does know and has had to learn when to do it, when not to do it. You know, sometimes I catch him doing it, and I do correct him a lot on it because society, it's just appropriate. Like, it's really not appropriate to do it in church. That's usually when I correct him.
I think
Yeah,
if
when
you
you
can
can,
do
yeah.
it, then I would do it.
Right,
Yes.
right. So
but
I do
just
tell
can't
him.
get him to do it.
Right. No, I totally get your point too, but I
Yeah.
think it's just distracting to me in church when it's really quiet, you know, and he's, you know, doing that. So,
Yeah.
and I can just prompt him, you know, and like, I do this a lot. But even coming back from St. Louis in the car, I noticed in the back seat, I just heard it a lot, and I didn't correct it then.
Yeah.
Because that's his thing, right? I mean, that's just
Exactly.
that's his sensory, and that's what he needs, and he likes it, and he'll tell me, I know I'm not supposed to do that. All right, but I do notice people looking at him a lot when he does it. I mean, it's just
Oh no! I mean, I wrote a
I'm-
post about going to the post office. I
Yes,
said the
that was very
spotlight's-
appropriate.
The spotlight. We are in the spotlight. We don't want to be. We are not a
Yeah.
theater major. We don't want to be in the spotlight. But yet we can't get away from it. So quiet spaces like church, we've talked about
I
before.
love you, Heather.
Church, yeah. I mean, that's the only place Zachary's quiet. I'm serious. Like it's the only place
Right.
he doesn't script.
I
It's
would,
a miracle.
I would tend to agree.
I'm just going to ask you a question. What do you want people to do when, like, do you want them to ignore you? Do you want
No.
them to smile at you and just say, "It's okay, Mama," or you know, like
Yeah, just
to acknowledge?
smile. Yeah, smile or something. What we normally the people seem bothered by it. It's fine. Like I say, at 22 years in, I'm pretty used to people acting bothered by it. But what would be nice if we could all just figure out,
Right.
he's just here just like you guys are, and maybe a smile or a nod. I think it's normally, like I say, a lot of people will turn around and be like, "What is that craziness?" or whatever. You'll have people that are just kind of, what are they called? Begrudgings? What are they called?
Yeah.
I can't say the word.
Yes.
Curmudgeon.
Curmudgeons.
Yeah.
Curmudgeons. I like that word. Anyway, yeah. So I would rather make eye contact and smile or whatever. I
Right.
mean, yeah.
I think
I don't-
you were the best word you used, Tara, was acknowledge. That's what I like. Acknowledge that we're present.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
You're not invisible.
You don't have to be our best friend.
Yeah.
You don't have to
Yeah.
feel sorry for us. You don't
No.
have to. Smiles are good, though. I do like the
Smiles
smiles,
are
but
good.
but just acknowledging
Right.
our presence.
Just a basic kindness like
Yeah.
you would do to anybody.
I would
Anywhere.
agree. Because I think when there's noises, like if I would hear Zachary, I mean, I think your normal instinct is to turn your head and think, what is that?
Yes.
So I
Mhm.
do tend to smile and kind of wave or wink or something.
Yeah.
Because then I know, like, I got you. I know what that's all about.
Exactly.
I think that's just helpful and appropriate.
And that always brings a smile to the parent's face too when you do that.
Yeah, I hope
Yes.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
we've had some great people. I mean, in all of our interactions with the community, but I think that's the thing is people don't see it enough.
right.
No.
Sorry, but people like us don't go out and about and just explore the world on a daily basis.
Well, I was just going to say that because you guys aren't out enough, probably.
No, because of that. And I think it's like the problem is that doesn't help the problem. That doesn't help finding a solution because they're isolated.
Right.
And it's not just autism. It's anybody with a profound
Yeah.
disability that they're dealing with. They're isolated.
Mhm.
I was
And then
gonna-
when they
yeah, I
come
was just
out of
gonna say that.
then people just don't know what to do. The answer is inclusion. That's the answer. The answer is we just go. And even if I'm uncomfortable, like the post office, trust me, I had a pit in my stomach. I didn't want to go to the post office because I already knew it was going to happen at the post office. It's too quiet for us. So, but just fighting it anyway and doing it. That's the only answer I can see. Because when people know Zachary, it doesn't bother them at all. Right. They're used to it. They're not, it's not weird or anything like that. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to an NPR story with my son as we were both going to work. StoryCorps came on. It was an adult, an Asperger guy who had a meltdown in a public airport. And so here's this man who's talking intelligently about what's happening. And he says he got overwhelmed and he's in a fetal position in a corner in the airport. And he said, and at that point, he knows people are staring at him or, what on earth is going on. He said, nobody came and asked me, what was happening. And so he's explaining, in StoryCorps, it was a sensory overload and whatever. The autism word is mentioned. And I'm driving and I look over to JR and he goes, don't look at me. And Aaron Likens has talked too about his meltdowns as an adult. And so he gets overwhelmed. And the one story that I remember is, at a golf course, he gets thrown in with a group of people that he doesn't know. The pacing's different, all the, the expectations and everything. And, he has this meltdown and he's traveling by himself and he stops off to play a game of golf, and he gets triggered into a meltdown age.
I can see that happening.
Yeah.
And for our listeners, Aaron Likens, did I say his last name right?
Yeah.
Don.
He wrote a fascinating book entitled Finding Kansas. And the premise of that is, imagine if you live in Kansas and you're fully functional. Nobody sees a disability. You can walk, you can talk, you can interact. You're one of the guys. But you step over into Missouri and all of a sudden you're paralyzed and you can't move, you can't talk, you have a disability. He said, that's what autism is like for me. If I'm in my Kansas, and for him, his Kansas is the racing scene. And I think he professionally,
race cars.
yeah,
Race cars.
is right. And he's a flag person. And he was born and raised in Indianapolis. And,
he didn't drive for a while, but he finally did. Yes.
Wow.
And extremely smart guy. Dropped out of high school, though. He was even in a private Christian Lutheran school. And it was too much, the sensory and the anxiety and all that. Dropped out of high school, took his GED equivalent, sets one of the high, I thought the book, it was like in the top 10 of people in the state of Missouri who'd taken the test. So obviously, very capable, intelligent. And yet, every once in a while, we have these meltdowns and in public and people are wondering what on earth is going on.
I remember Dr. Grant used to, we couldn't figure out what was triggering certain behaviors. And Dr. Grant would say, well, Zion starts with a cup in the morning and, certain sensory things fill up a little bit of the cup, or anxiety from something fills up the cup a little bit. And I'm like, why does it always happen at home? It's because that cup is full by the time he gets off of school. And then it just overflows when I ask him like something simple when he gets home. Because he's kept it in that cup all day. And then it's
extra hard for them.
Yeah. We hear that a lot at IEP meetings. I've talked to other parents that they would, is he not doing this? No, we don't see that at school. Well, he's doing it at home. Is he not doing this? And it's like a different child at school. But then once they get home, that's when they know that they're safe.
Yeah.
And that they can just go ahead and let go and let loose of it all.
Right.
And
which makes
I
sense.
hear that a lot.
Just like us, if we get off work and we get home, we take our sweater off, relax, and you can kind of, it's kind of
put our pajamas on.
Yeah.
Take off the bra.
Exactly.
I was going to say that, but then I stopped. But I thought,
no, Kara will say it.
Let Kara say it.
But it's just more extreme. Everything is brought up more extreme with our kids. But I think moral of the story is their sensory needs still have to be met, and they still have them. I mean, my son almost 32. He'll still pitch fit sometimes. If we're at a party, like family, friends, I can hear him stomping up I can hear him. I'm like, oh my God. well, she just, she's so loud. And I'm like, oh, okay. It's very, like you were saying, it's a little off-putting. He's 6'1".
Yeah.
He's like a grown man and pitching a little fit, having a little meltdown. So some people just stare like, oh, okay, but I don't know. Then that kind of shoves the hand, like, then someone might not talk to him for the rest of the night. I don't know. It's just,
Yeah. It's
just the way it is. But,
I was kind of curious, Kara, how Kelsey does after work. I mean, she's done some what I would consider stressful work, the customer
True.
service and stuff.
Yeah.
I know it was a good fit for her, but
when she did the banking, it would be stressful because people would cuss at her and be upset. When she did the bank card with,
oh boy, my son would have a heyday with that.
yeah, well, and the rules is they didn't have to tolerate it too badly. But, most of the people that were calling, they lost their card's not working. So she had to kind of walk them through. But then also they taught her how to do that. But, I remember picking her up and the phone call lasted extra long. And I was like, Kelsey, where were you? You were supposed to be out here 15 minutes ago. And she said, well, I had this phone call and they just kept cussing and yelling at me. And so, yeah, it got a little frustrating for her. Yeah. Got a little frustrating, but she, the company said you don't have to take that.
Right.
And so she was able to even hang up on them
Right.
if need be.
Right.
that's a good example of being supported at work.
True.
For everybody.
Good
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Well, let me ask you guys, did your kids ever chew on their clothes and chew on pencils? How many? Oh my goodness. Kelsey would get at school, numerous times she'd come home and there's holes all on her shirt because she was chewing. The sensory
Yeah, that's very
craving.
common.
Yeah.
Lots of those little chew necklaces we went
Yeah.
through that
Yeah.
are supposed to be indestructible. Chewed right through 'em.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, pencils. Oh my gosh, I come home and the whole end of it's chewed off.
Yeah.
I'm like, what happened to the other half? Did you eat it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll talk about that another topic, like with autism. I know back in the day when because I'm a little older, we tried to steer clear of those chew toys. That was a thing not chew toys. That's not appropriate. What is the appropriate word for them? Chewies.
Yeah.
To limit their time with them because it's not appropriate behavior and they
Correct.
shouldn't get used to that. So this was years ago, listeners, this was years ago, and we didn't want the saliva flinging around everywhere. And even in special ed classes in Springfield Public Schools, they were allowed to have them sanitary. I mean, it can be an issue, even in
Yes,
classrooms
school,
for
yeah.
all that flying around in the room. But I know back in the day it was talked to be, to have the limited access to those. But there is a need for that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how it is right
Well,
now
that's
in
what I
schools.
mean. I think back in
Right.
the day, it was like that for all of it.
Okay.
I think it was all of it.
Right.
I mean, I think the point of school and we're all 20-ish years plus, right? So
Right.
that was when the Autism Speaks and all that stuff just started. People did not have a very good concept,
I see.
a very good mental model of what autism was anyway. Everybody was kind of learning. So I think
Right.
it was just in every aspect, whether it was chewing on something or flapping your arms or Zachary, talking, scripting or whatever, they wanted to just kind of shut it all down.
Gotcha.
That's what I
But
feel
really,
like.
when then you turn around and you look at it, was that the best thing for them? At that time, should they have done that? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I
don't
think,
either.
yeah, I think we all did the best we could at the time that it happened, right? Because
Yeah.
we were all
We're just
obviously-
doing what they're telling us to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Did
But-
they know what they were doing?
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah, really, did anybody? I mean,
Right.
unless you're the person and you can, like I say, until Zachary can kind of tell me, no one's
Yeah.
really got his number
Mhm.
because they don't know.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
I think, as an adult, to me, it's just letting him guide us a little bit more than maybe we have in the past.
I think that's a perfect example of just giving other moms grace too,
Mhm.
because I just feel like we're all doing the best we can,
Right.
and we're all, sometimes we have great days and other times it's hard. And,
Right.
but a lot of those times when we have great days, we can be supports for other moms.
Right.
So,
Right.
we had a lot of stimming and stuff like that when he was younger. And that's why I asked Heather that question, because I remember one mom in Walmart just said, "Can I help you?" Like when Zion was having a meltdown and I had 2 other kids with me and I needed help and I didn't,
Right.
so that's wonderful when It's different when they're younger, though. So,
No, but that's good advice,
yeah.
Tara, and I think that's a good way to end today because
Yes.
I've learned that
Grace.
in the last few years to look out and reach and ask people if they need help. I think that's
Yeah.
really
Yes.
that was good for you. I like that.
yeah.
I don't know if I've done that before, but I feel when he was younger. But I think that's a good strategy to do, to ask people if they need help
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
because we've all been there. So we're closing it out on sensory. So thank you for listening. And Tara, where can everybody find us?
Yep, we're on Instagram and Facebook at Navigating Adult Autism Podcast. Our website is navigatingadultautism.com. You can listen to us on Apple and Spotify and on our website. So please listen, review, subscribe, and all the good things, and meet you back here next time.
That's right. If you have any questions, feel free to email us.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Bye.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.